Hey folks, Mike Naso here with the first video update on the first day officially of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, and we do have a tropical depression that has developed in the Gulf of Mexico. Here's a look at the satellite of the entire Atlantic, and again, it's the first day of June, the first day of the hurricane season, so things are not favorable. There's a lot of upper level wind shear ripping apart whatever tries to develop. However, we had a little safe harbor in the Northeast Gulf, and that has now developed into a tropical depression. This is Tropical Depression 2, and it's numbered 2 because we actually had a storm in January that was posthumously given an upgrade to a subtropical storm. So technically, that was storm number 1 of the year. So this is Tropical Depression 2, and you can see it's at 28.0, 86.6, and it is going to be drifting to the south over the next few days, right off the west coast of Florida. It looks like it will strengthen into a tropical storm, the first tropical storm of the year. If and when that happens, its name will be Arlene. That is the first name on this year's name list. And again, when you look at the satellite image of it, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, you're looking and going, Mike, this thing's curling up. This is going to be a tropical storm. It's over the hot Gulf waters. However, the Hurricane Center made an interesting observation. There's a lot of wind shear on this map. You can just see the shear ripping across the Gulf of Mexico. 30 knots of wind shear, dry air, very unfavorable for hurricane development. However, this storm is so weak that it seems that the cloud tops are only extending up about 300 millibars in the atmosphere, where the shear is lighter. If we look at this map of mid-level shear, you can see mid-level shear is much more favorable than upper-level shear. So basically the system's so puny that it's not being affected by it. Basically, it doesn't have the cojones of a normal tropical cyclone that would get ripped apart by shear, so that's why it's kind of getting a pass. However, as time goes by, computer models show this will move with the flow down towards areas of northern Cuba, and by Saturday it should dissipate, but not before becoming a tropical storm. So again, if you're in Florida, there is a slight flood risk, but that happens during summer anyways, especially in June. You could get very moist air, wet tropical rains on the west coast of Florida. So this system could add 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, and that could cause a slight flood threat. But other than that, the wind should stay offshore, so really only if you're a mariner over the Gulf of Mexico, you'd have to worry about any potential for an impact from whatever this system does. And again, it should get a name. And we have that happen a lot to where we'll get the A storm in June and then nothing until August. Now, what this hurricane season is going to bring, we just don't know yet. A lot of the seasonal forecasts show that we're going to have an El Nino. Now, that's where the waters in the Pacific are very, very warm, and that creates upper-level conditions that are very unfavorable for hurricane development in the Atlantic. In the meantime, in the Pacific, like we had that typhoon last week, we're going to have hurricanes like crazy, but usually they stay away unless they curl back into Mexico. So for us here in the Atlantic, the United States, down in the Caribbean, it's a good thing if we have an El Nino, but Hurricane Andrew was a Category 5 over Florida in an El Nino year. So again, anything's possible. So we're going to keep an eye on this whole hurricane season because the waters are so warm that that could offset the El Nino. We don't know. And we have had bad storms like Andrew in El Nino years. So this year's name list, what are we looking at? We're looking at Arlene. That'll be the first storm, probably in the Gulf from this depression. And then we'll go through Brett, Cindy, Don, Emily, Franklin, Gert, Harold, Idalia, Jose, Katya, Lee, Margot, Nigel, all the way down the list. Now, this name list is reused every 6 years. So there are 6 lists, every 6 years it gets reused. So this name list was first used in 1981, then 1987, then 93, 99, then in 2005 during the horrendous hurricane season of 2005. And then it was used again in 2011 and in the very active year of 2017. So some of these names have been replaced over the last few decades. So when we look at the list now, we have Brett. In 1999, Hurricane Brett was a very, very bad hurricane. It was a Category 4 right off the coast of Texas. It developed very quickly in August, and it was a big deal. It became a Category 4 hurricane, weakened to a 3, came on shore in Kennedy County, Texas, and it was such a sparsely populated area that there was no damage and no death, thankfully. They didn't retire the name. So Brett at one time was a monster hurricane in a hot August summer of '99, but that name remains. We also had Hurricane Dennis, 2005. That was a Category 4. It roared through the Caribbean and slammed into the Florida Panhandle as a major hurricane, a very rare event in July of 2005. And then we go down and we had Hurricane Harvey, a Category 4 in Texas in 2017. That name was replaced with Harold. We had Hurricanes Irene in 2011. That was replaced with Irma. And in 2017, Irma was one of the worst hurricanes we ever saw. Then we also had Hurricane Katrina, 2005. That name was replaced, obviously, with Katia. And we go down the list. You can see Lenny in '99. We replaced it with Lee. Maria, 2017. That's now Margot. Nate in 2017 is now Nigel. And then when we go down further, you can see Hurricane Stan in 2005, Hurricane Rita in 2005, not to mention Wilma. Those names all replaced with Rena, Sean, and Whitney. And so that'll do it for the tropics. It's the first day of hurricane season. We don't know yet what the season's going to bring. As of right now, we have a tropical depression over the Gulf. No watches and warnings needed. It should become Arlene and then just drift south and dissipate. And we'll wait and see if El Nino is going to make this a slow season or if we're still going to have something to deal with. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics, and I'll talk to you next time.